There is no hierarchy of art. By saying this, I want to counteract the belief that any form of artistic expression possesses a higher intrinsic value than another. When discussing art, the prerequisite to find a medium's worth is often diluted to a measurement of its disposability, a generalised perception that suggests one form to be more cultivated, thus more necessary than its peer. And of course, the conflict of cinema versus television is where this notion emerges most frequently. The idea that television is an expendable form, I believe, needs to be eradicated, because the anatomy of the televisual medium is endowed with methods of storytelling unobtainable in film. For example, the clearest benefit of a serialised story is length. More than cinema, television can grow in complexity over a longer lasting period. A character isn't confined to a 2-hour tale, and their intricacies can thus blossom with patience. However, what may not be instantly recognised as a crucial storytelling device is the episodic nature of television. A consortium of 3-act structures inside of a larger 3-act structure, much like chapters in a novel, can imbue a lyrical quality to a story, wherein themes and ideas are found through repetition and re-emergence. Few shows have a reliance on this method of storytelling, even fewer in which every episode will be circumscribed to a unique story and universe. Yet beneath the main narrative it constructs, it's inside this melting pot of individual stories that we can discover the identity of Cowboy Bebop. Can we as humans find something in nothing, find purpose beyond survival? These ontological thoughts that plague us make up the same existential drift our characters repeatedly find themselves in, and it's what is most significant to the journey of Cowboy Bebop. Its science fiction setting following a crew of bounty hunters and their unique adventures is all peripheral, because when we dissect the whole piece rather than analyse each separate episode, the series becomes a metaphysical expression of how people overcome their lives, particularly the lingering grief that comes along with them. Bebop offers a unique portrait in the manner in which life plays itself out. It's less of a linear path towards a goal, more of a haze that we must venture through without any guidance. Because the sad reality of Bebop's story is that our cast of characters are lost in the cosmos without any justification for why they live, other than to exist. And the only recurrent theme that provides any kind of motive for them is the reconciliation with one's past.
This is what I paid, yeah, for being too gung-ho and running ahead of the game. You get the point?
I don't want to do this, Jet.
Then why are you?
Let's just say my past is catching up to me.
Yet why deliver it in such episodic fashion? The compendium of episodes, rather than forming a continuing arc, is comprised of individual plots. Whether hunting a chess master or a computer hacker, the basic formula for Bebop remains consistent. We're introduced to a bounty, the crew pursues them, the episode concludes. Admittedly, this is a layman's description, because when we examine the essence of Cowboy Bebop, we discover this episodic formula servicing something very transgressive. Understanding its structure is the first step to discovering meaning in Cowboy Bebop. Although each episode focuses on a new character or plot, the stories themselves have no direct association to the narratives of our main protagonists. And though the colourful crew of Spike and Company is the one consistent element of the series, the real subjects of each episode are only viewed through their lens. Our characters are typically the secondary facets in the story presently unfolding. They're either the obstacles that must be overcome, or more often than not, are merely involved through circumstance.
Hang on to this!
Huh?
Meet me tonight, no, tomorrow night at the cathedral on the edge of town.
What?
Hey, wait!
Here he is! Get him!
Our protagonists are made to be distant to the events from the outset, because as important as these stories may be to the subjects directly involved, to our characters, these stories don't matter. Why? Because each of our protagonists has a past they hold on to dearly, a past ever present in their mind, which isolates them to a world where only their concerns are relevant. For the crew of the Bebop, they yearn for their own narratives to be addressed, rather than serve as a background for the narratives of others. They narrowed their view of the world to believe that nothing else could be more important, yet they don't allow themselves the reality that there are others that suffer through the same fate. And so the only survival tactic they can employ to overcome these feelings is to distance themselves from the personal strife of others. Stoicism.
What? Are you for real? We can't live
Oh, well.
without them. I knew I
Whatever
should've loved you.
happens,
I'm only 18.
happens.
I don't wanna-
The lack of affection, the sidestepping of personal responsibility, Spike and the rest of the crew utilise this whatever happens happens approach. Not because they actually believe it, but because it's a replacement for their avoidance of reality. The truth that these strangers that they interact with are nothing more than reflections of themselves. Humans that are willing to sacrifice everything for harmony and purpose in their lives. Just as our protagonists can't afford to form attachments to these unique characters, the same is also said for the subjects in question. They aren't concerned about the struggles of our protagonists, because every person that we see is living an existence forged by their pasts, and they do anything to make things right. Even though our characters recognise the struggle within every person they encounter, they have to live their lives vicariously through others because their own is so empty.
Empty time. It sounds good to call bounty hunting freelance work, but all that really means is that we're self-employed. So when there's no one to hunt, we have nothing. Nothing to do, nothing to live on.
Because imagine living a life of regret, a life in which your past feels unfinished, as though there were a piece missing and you have to find it. Our characters are unable to live with purpose in the present because of the sorrows chaining them to their past. They're the detached outcasts that were once part of this world, but now act as stray souls unable to form a connection inside it. Whether it's Faye unable to remember her earlier years, or Jet unable to fathom the loss of his previous life, our characters' regrets manifest into indifference to the world surrounding them. Every episode ends back with our crew just marking time. It's as though the events that occur never happened. They already feel so distant, and because of the series' episodic nature, are never mentioned again. Our characters don't want to acknowledge the hardships of others, because they can't risk opening themselves completely for fear of even further misery. Their past is the priority, and it's hard to put anything else first when you already live with so much sorrow.
I'm not going there to die. I'm going to find out if I'm really alive. I have to do it, Faye.
The constant search for purpose is the summary of our characters' lives, which means an endless urge to impose meaning in each insignificant day-to-day moment. Bertrand Russell once described philosophy as a no man's land, that which isn't currently known. And to me, this is the most apropos description of Cowboy Bebop's depiction of how we journey through life. Although saturated with ennui and silent moments of contemplation, the grandiose ideas dispensed through Cowboy Bebop are done in a manner that seems unfulfilling and almost incomplete. The characters don't have answers, they just hypothesize.
Who am I? My past? My future? These are questions every human asks at least once in their life.
Does the show work on the theory of Kant that we're all selfish?
I'm gonna go look for my woman. You can go look for the other one.
Or does it propose a more humanistic view of us?
What's your price to keep from leaking this thing to the press?
Just leave the old guy alone. Call off the bounty hunters. That's all we ask.
These constant contradictions and questions suggest that any philosophy our characters implement is never consistent, and it leads to the show's brutally honest reminder that no matter how much we convince ourselves, the majority of our lives are lived without purpose. There is no unifying belief that makes everything connect. The truth is often the simplest answer.
But I still don't know why it carved pictures of weird creatures and all. What in the world was that all about, huh?
That's easy. It was lonely, so it drew some friends.
But our characters act as though if they keep searching, perhaps they will discover life's greater purpose, because they fear to acknowledge that they've built an existence fused to their past, and that until that point, all they do is wait. Wait endlessly for something or someone to make everything okay again. Thus, they'll fabricate an individual philosophy as a way to avoid this truth. It's an accurate depiction of the human race. We'll do anything to find meaning in the meaninglessness, because the truth of the matter is that as humans we typically have only one goal in our minds, finding that one connection that makes us feel whole, and everything up to that point is devoid of any true meaning. Our characters want to feel connected, but avoid the truth that their only objective is simply awaiting the confrontation with whatever spawned the emptiness they feel.
Men only think about the past right before their death, as if they were searching frantically for proof that they were alive.
Eventually, our main characters are confronted with their past, and at these moments, their behaviour radically changes. Much like the rest of the inhabitants within this universe, they become willing to abandon everything in pursuit of it. Their passivity dissipates, revealing their vulnerabilities and their true nature.
You think I'm vicious? You don't know what vicious is!
And this sudden 180 attitude tied to the episodic vision of the show reveals Cowboy Bebop's true message to the audience. We followed the stories of various characters, which in the larger picture may first seem meaningless. However, if we consider how this episodic format is thought of in the mind of our main character, it's reflective of what most of our lives are, a singular sequence of unrelated events that affect us indirectly. The subjects of each episode serve as a separate entity to Bebop's overarching narrative. These unique characters that make up the catalogue of the human experience completely contrast the unempathic stature of our protagonists. The playful, the melancholic, the absurd. Why such a division? Because what Cowboy Bebop is a demonstration of a subject viewed by the outsider, a display of how the attitudes of that surrounding us will affect our perceptions. Our main characters were constantly surrounded by others who were able to confront their pasts, while they were still searching for their own catharsis. The subversion is that each episode isn't circumscribed to its own universe. To our characters, every episode accumulated as one single event, creating a mindset in them that clearly the past was something which had to be reconciled with. To the audience, we saw an episodic formula. To the characters, it was all one giant episode. In each unique plot, they saw a continuous, unchangeable pattern of the different way people confront their lives, and creates this mosaic in which our protagonists were able to gain an objective glimpse at the unpredictable nature of life to others, and one that would be reflected upon with an almost grim nostalgia.
Oh, Ed, anything but blue.
But when they themselves finally are able to confront their past, what happens? They no longer have this objectivity, because they view everything through a sole egocentric view. They finally become the subject of the story, something they've longed for through the entire series. But then, who becomes the outsider? Us. At the finale of the series, we're greeted with the phrase, "You're gonna carry that weight." Originally, Spike was our subject, and the characters of each episode were his subjects. We watch Spike watch others. But when Spike has no more subjects to view, he unconsciously becomes them, confronting his past with no concern for others, and the show realises that in turn, we have become Spike. We're the outsider finally watching a man confront his past unfiltered, just as Spike did. This time, we've been given the context as to why it's so important for him to pursue it, and at its finale, Cowboy Bebop demonstrates its grandest subversion by making us the focus. Just as Spike carried the weight of everybody else he encountered, Bebop asks us to do the same. View the entire work of art it's presented us with, the entire chronology of Spike's story, and asks, will we merely carry the burden of seeing someone confront their own past, or will it be the catalyst we needed of how we are to confront our own? Regardless of our choice, nothing changes what we saw, nothing changes what happened. The past is going to stay with us. We're gonna carry that weight. For me, the entire message of Cowboy Bebop can be summed up at the end of the episode, Jupiter Jazz. Our heroes didn't succeed in what they aimed to achieve, and so they must wait, and until their next opportunity, it's nothing more than survival. But there's nothing wrong with this. Cowboy Bebop never displays pessimism in this lack of meaning in life, because it teaches us that although the universe doesn't owe us purpose or hope, we're still the creators of our own destiny. Every single person you encounter has a past, has suffered more than just ourselves. But the truth is, if we want to live a life where we create our own meaning, we must accept our pasts, because if we hold on to them, they'll chain us to a tunnel vision of life. Even when this was explained outright to Spike, he wouldn't accept it.
Yeah, I understand. As if. Bang.
Only after his confrontation did Spike realise that all our characters had to accept their past one way or the other, because it was the only way that they could form their own destiny. But by then, his choice had been made.
Bang.
The final image of Bebop offers a sense of finality. As Spike becomes immortalised through the mural of his dying image pictorialised, this is how he's remembered, and it shows that he truly had nothing else to live for. Becoming so chained to his history meant that Spike's objective was to confront his past and nothing more. But as we see, the remaining characters continue to survive. Just like how once the subjects of each episode dealt with their pasts, the lives of the Bebop crew continued. No matter what your struggles are, everybody around us will carry on. Surely that offers some kind of hope in life. We each have our own stories to live, but we can't let ourselves be shackled to our own sadness. There must be some closure, however it may be achieved. Yet once we've learned the acceptance of our pasts, will we finally be able to live whichever life we please?
愛してたと嘆く